Y sigue la salsa con salsa y José Mazo. Y sigue la salsa con salsa y José Mazo. Y sigue la salsa.
And with that, I say good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Con Salsa Live on Facebook and YouTube. My name is José Mazo. Doing it somewhat different than we usually do. Many of you who have been watching the show, this is edition number 173 of our Facebook and YouTube live programs. We started this on March of 2020. We continue to do our radio program every Saturday night from 10 p.m. until 3 o'clock in the morning on WBUR 90.9 FM, National Public Radio in Boston. 48 years of the very best in Afro-Latin music. And as I was saying, normally when I would do this show, the first hour is music, and then we invite our guests to join us during the second hour for a conversation. But today, due to the circumstances of the schedules of my guests, we're going to start off with conversation and some music, and then continue throughout the 2 hours with music and conversation with my guests. Because I have with me Bobby Sanabria, the renowned educator, band leader, percussionist extraordinaire, recording artist, cultural warrior, my dear friend, and a son of the Bronx. He'll be joining me. His new album with his band Multiverse is titled Vox Humana, in which he has three queens participating on the vocals, including the Grammy Award winner Janice Siegel from Manhattan Transfer, Queen Antoinette Montague, and also Queen Jennifer Jade Ledesma. They will be joining us throughout the afternoon and the conversation. But we're going to start off with some music from the album. It's a new one, and I hope that you will stick around for these 2 hours. Share this with your friends so that way they join us as well. And let me know that you're hearing and watching me as you are tuning in. And Ryan Newfall, my field director, one of my two field directors, says, I see you and hear the music. Thank you very much, Ryan. And let me see what else we got here. Others who will be tuning in later, let me know. But in the meantime, share this with your friends. Por favor, dejen saber a sus amistades que estamos en vivo. El nombre mío es José Mazo. Durante las próximas 2 horas tengo como invitado mi querido amigo y hermano Bobby Sanabria, reconocido percusionista, director de su banda Multiverse Big Band, su nueva propuesta musical Vox Humana. Y tendremos también como invitadas Janice Siegel, Antoinette Montague y Jennifer Jade Ledesma. To start things off from the new album, listen to this version of one of the songs that many of us from this generation that know it will understand as being very, very important in our lifetime, titled Spooky. Escuchemos la canción titulada Spooky, vocals arrangement by Janice Siegel and Bobby Sanabria, based on a small group arrangement by Christian McBride. I love it. That's what music's all about, in which you expect something and then you get something in return that was not what you expected, and that is the case of this new album, Vox Humana, by our dear friend Bobby Sanabria and Multiverse Orchestra. I'm going to add Bobby to the conversation and Janice as well. And I'm going to lower the music a little bit. And there they are, my two guests, Bowie Sanabria and Janice Siegel. Welcome, both of you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
You're welcome, Jose.
Gracias, José, y a todo el mundo que está sintonizado.
It's always a pleasure to be in your company. Two of my living angels. The other two living angels, queens themselves, Antoinette and Jen Jade, are there as well. They're going to join us momentarily, so don't go away. I see both of you. Looking forward to you joining us momentarily. But I want to take the time that we have with you, Janice, because it's so important to get your perspective on this album. First and foremost, congratulations on this recording. Very different than what people usually expect from, I guess, Bowie Sanabria and Multiverse Orchestra. So let's dive right in. Bowie, the idea of this album, and then Janice, your voice being part of the three queens that just takes it to the next level. Bowie, let's start with you very quickly.
Well, I've always wanted to do this, but it was always in the back of my head. And originally we were going to do, before COVID, a tribute to Puerto Rico, my ancestral homeland. That got canceled at Disney's Club Coca-Cola. Everything was planned out. All the music was planned out. And then all of a sudden it got canceled. So during the time period, during COVID, I started thinking about it. Hey, now is the time to revisit that idea that I've always had of having three vocalists representing who I am in terms of my history as a native New Yorican son. I always say I'm from the largest city in Puerto Rico, the Bronx in New York. So all of the music here on the album represents some part of my life and my upbringing. And to bring that forth, I needed three of the greatest vocalists living today, and I wanted them to be women, and I wanted them to each be individuals, but all legitimate jazz singers. That meant that they had to be able not only to interpret a melody in their own unique way, but also be able to improvise, which is paramount. I know people argue with me all the time. Well, Billie Holiday and those others, I go, those are exceptions to the rule. But when you have these great talents like Janice, Antoinette, and Jennifer, well, they just took everything to another level, and I thanked them profusely before we went on stage to record this live No Jive at Dizzy's. I said, and Janice remembers that, I know all of them do, that I say, I want to talk to all of you. And I thank them profusely for fulfilling this dream for me in celebration of the 25th anniversary of this incredible orchestra that people had told me when I started doing it, you're crazy, you're only going to be able to get a gig here and there. And I said, no, don't worry about it. Just, relax.
Relax. Well, I want to talk more about that, but for the sake of time, because I know, Janice, you're in the West Coast. You have a gig in a few minutes, so thank you for jumping in. It's a short amount of time that I've got you with us, but thank you for taking time out. Talk to us about this relationship and this context that Bobby has so eloquently stated for us, so as to this celebration of this music and this being biographical, if you will, for Bobby's repertoire of music reflecting his life and his persona, but you in particular as a vocalist, well-known vocalist for the Manhattan Transfer.
Well, I also grew up in New York City. I'm from Brooklyn, and I am a big lover of Latin music and grew up with it surrounding me, even though I never sang it before. I mean, it's been a gradual process, and I admire Bobby's musicianship so much. So when he asked me to join this project, especially singing with two other wonderful singers, I said yes immediately for so many reasons. I come from a tradition of girl groups, actually. I mean, I've sung in all-female trios quite a bit, and I love it, especially when they're strong women, And then there's a potential for harmony and for a lot of interplay. But the band is like incredible. I mean, the arrangements and the feel, and Bobby himself is, I mean, I know he's here and he's listening and he's, but I'm going to say he's just freaking incredible on that bandstand as a leader and as a musician and directing everybody and singing choros and, yelling things and in Spanish. So I'm trying to learn Spanish, actually. So I understand what he's saying. But it was an absolute immediate yes for me to join this project.
So the song we heard,
and I learned so much too.
Tell us what you learned, just so that we can walk away. How this kind of encounter, this engagement, was profitable, not economically in the sense of profitability, being profitable, but as far as you as an artist learning something. Share with us some of
Well,
those things that
first
you
of all,
learned.
Bobby was very open to doing a couple of tunes that are not certainly not part of the Latin jazz oeuvre, whatever the how you pronounce it. Like Christina Aguilera's Genie in a Bottle, and Spooky, which
Mhm.
was a one-hit wonder for the Classics Four. Really, well, Dusty Springfield did it too, but
Mhm.
I remember it from pop radio. I mean, he was open to all of that. But it just gives being in this band gives me a deeper understanding of the incredible complexity and beauty of Latin music. And I'm always curious and asking questions because it's not my upbringing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm kind of coming into it as an outsider in a way.
But at the same time, coming. This is my perspective now. I'm speaking as a listener, coming at it as both someone in your own right who is respected for what you've done with the hand transfer. Your voice, of course, renowned, and the group's voice renowned, and what they've done, and the influence you've had in other people. I mean, when I speak to somebody like Juan Luis Guerra from the Dominican Republic, he uses you as a reference as to how they use their voices, in unity, right, in harmony. And he'll mention Manhattan Transfer. At the same time, it may sound cliche for many people out there, but jazz is the universal language, right? Music is the universal language. So regardless if you're coming from where you're coming from, it is somewhat not surprising that you would be able to do a Spooky and Genie and bring it into this realm, where you have the vocalese, but then you have the rhythms that we know as being Afro-Cuban, right? And that made it
Yes.
so special for me. That made it very special because it was like taking it out of the traditional lane. Before you go, when you think about Antoinette and Jen, you mentioned about singing with two other great voices. Tell me about structuring that harmony, those harmonies that we hear between you three when you perform.
Well, it's really traditional three-part harmony. Usually the melody is on top, and then you're playing around with the thirds and the fifths. And with three-part harmony, although Lambert Henderson Ross did it very well, they added a lot of elements of the higher functions of the chord.
Hmm.
But I mean, what we are doing basically is not written. It's just a head arrangement, really. But the ladies are very, very fast with harmonies, so it's fun. I mean, that's really was my beginning, is doing head arrangements
Uh-huh.
for three voices. It's like, you take the middle, I'll take the top, you take the bottom, and let's see what happens. So nothing is written as of yet.
Mhm.
So that says a lot because this recording was done live, and so I am imagining, Bobby, this was one take. It wasn't like, okay, let's do it over again. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try that one more time. It was like, that's it. Whatever came out, but it came out tremendously well, and I just want to congratulate you, Janice, for making it so special. And I enjoy listening to your voice. I can listen to it anytime, singing any genre. So let's make sure that folks know that you're very much part of this family of great music that comes from the Multiverse Orchestra. And Janice, I know you got to go. I'm looking at the clock. I don't want you to be late for stage. You got a show in a few
Well,
minutes.
they can't start without me.
Tell people where you are and where you're performing and who you're performing with.
I'm with the Manhattan Transfer. We're on our 50th anniversary tour. We're at Glendora, California today at Citrus Community College, and we hit in about 45 minutes.
Well, we
So,
thank you.
if you're here.
We thank you for joining us for the few minutes that you were able to give us. It's
My
much
pleasure,
appreciated.
Jose. It's so nice to meet you.
Oh, likewise, you're one of my living angels. I love you and blessings to you, and congratulations,
Thank you.
50 years. And please, our blessings to the band as well. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
you.
Bye, Bobby. Bye, Antoinette. Bye, Jan Jade. See you soon. I'll see you at the next gigs.
Okay.
Knock it out of the park like you guys always do. My regards to Tris, Allen, and who else? Oh, I forgot. Cheryl. So man, they're on their 50th anniversary
50
farewell
years.
tour. It's amazing. December 20th is their last date in Disney Theater
It's
in
the
Los Angeles.
15th.
The 15th.
December.
15th,
Yeah, I should mention that actually. December 15th is our last date at Disney Hall in Los Angeles. So
Congratulations.
An amazing group. Amazing.
Oh,
it's
for
so
sure they are.
wowing. And man, I saw them in the New York last performance in New York City. I was flabbergasted. It was just amazing.
It's great stuff. Thank you, Janice. Appreciate you.
Thank you,
All right.
Jose.
Love you madly.
Bye. See you soon.
All right.
Bye.
All right, Bobby, before we bring the queens, Antoinette and Jen Jade, listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make sure we know that that's Do It Again, not the famous To Be With You by the Joe Cuba Sextet with Jimmy Sabatero and Joe Feliciano. Listen to this. Mi gente, estamos escuchando el sonido de Bobby Sanabria y su multiverse big band del disco Box Humana, la selección Do It Again, grabado en vivo el día 18 y 19 de junio 2022 en Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola en la ciudad de Nueva York. I love the sound, Bobby. That
Thank
big
you so
band,
much.
you know, I am weak when it comes to big band. I mean, you know,
We all are.
yeah, I mean, I love all different ensembles that you can put together, but when you have a big band, that is like heaven to me. The sound of a big band is so special, and then to add vocals like the vocals you've added here, which then is the opportune moment for me to bring our other two queens on board. And I think I see Queen Antoinette is in her automobile driving from point A to point B.
Point B to point C to point D. But this is too important to not point the energy and let people know that we're here on this amazing show with you and Maestro Bobby Sanabria and my sister Queen Jen Jade Ledesna. And it's just an honor to have people highlight your work. And so I'm glad that everyone will continue to cheerlead this project and the people that are involved, every instrumentalist, every singer, every leader. And Bobby is like 4 leaders in one, you know.
That's for sure. Well, Queen, the one thing I'm going to ask, drive carefully because you're in the driver's seat. And so, you know, you don't need to look at us. We can see you.
I won't. We're riding down. We're in Harlem. I just got finished doing a panel discussion and forgot a jacket, so I got to go back. But anyway,
Okay.
you can ask and I can talk, and
Yes,
or you
ma'am.
can go to Jen or whatever you need to do.
There you go. Okay, but welcome and thank you. I
Thank
know
you.
you're busy. I appreciate you taking time to join us this afternoon.
It's
And
hugely
congratulations on this recording because, as I was saying to Janice, I mean, to hear you three queens do what you do and the way you did it, you bring something to this. And Bobby, you speak about this as being biographical. So let's set the stage for folks, you know, for folks who are listening and watching at this moment, para aquellas personas que estén viendo este momento. Cuando hablamos sobre esta música siendo parte de tu biografía, de tu vida, de quién tú eres como puertorriqueño, nacido en Nueva York, en el Bronx, criado en Nueva York, sin embargo, amante de la música afroantillana, la música afrocubana, la música del Latin jazz, del jazz, pero también tu música no es solamente ese género, son muchos géneros en el cual estamos escuchando en este disco. Let's talk about those genres that you decided to bring in, those elements of your life story, because every song tells a little bit about your DNA. So talk
Right.
about that. And in the background, we have one Amazonas. I think is the one that's playing in the background right now. Continue.
Well, I mean, I'm a product of my environment. I was just very lucky that I grew up. I was born in 1957, going into the 60s. I'm a child of the 70s. And as you know, Jose, I was a freshman at the Berkeley College of Music in 1975. And when I was there at Berkeley, I was the only freaking Puerto Rican there my freshman year. There were three Brazilians, one Costa Rican, and one Chicano. Well, actually, two Chicanos. And man, it was a very lonely existence in Berkeley that my freshman year. But I got to meet you at
Hmm.
a Tito Puente appearance at the Harbor House.
Yeah, and Lynn.
That's another story, which is a very beautiful one. But
Hmm.
in any case, coming from New York City, being shocked at the fact that first of all there were no Latinos at the school other than the people I mentioned, and that the fact that the teachers themselves didn't know who Tito Puente Machito, Tito Rodriguez, Jose Curbelo. No, they didn't know nothing of that culture, nothing of that music. I was dumbfounded. And when I told Charlie Palmieri when we had lunch, I would to counter that I would frequently go back on the weekends to New York. I had lunch with Maestro Palmieri, Charlie, and Eddie's older brother, and Rene Lopez. I said, Maestro, they don't know who you are out there. Nobody does. And he goes to me, listen, kid, once you drive up I-95 and you get past New Haven, Connecticut, people start going, Tito, who? You know, so that was what the environment that I was in, and I was fortunate because I exposed my fellow students and the teachers to that culture, et cetera, et cetera. And now, from what I've heard from faculty, that the largest population of students at the school are Latinos. You know, so
That could be. That could be. We have a very robust presence of Latinos, Pan Latin, in the sense that they're coming
right,
from everywhere,
right,
and even as far as faculty, we've got now we have Celis Zamora, the great Cuban pianist, Edmar Colon, the great Puerto Rican
right,
saxophonist. We have Oscar Stagnaro, who's been there for several years as well, and we have Eggy Castrillo, just to name
right.
a few. So what you started and others started, and Edgar Nevares started, as far as continuing that whole thing of folks being professors at Berkeley is very much important. But talk to us about when I'm going to let people know. Let's share with them the repertoire on this double album: Caravan by Juan Tisol, Cabullito de Alelí by Rafael Hernandez, Puerto Rico by Eddie Palmieri, my theme song for the last 48 years of my show, Partido Alto. You also have Let the Good Times Roll. Who Taught You That? I Love You, Porgy. Genie in a Bottle, Amazona, Spooky, To Be With You, Do It Again, Mi Congo. It's an eclectic group of songs that those of us who know this music can understand it, right? Because it's part of our lives as well. But for you as an artist, presenting it as part of your bio, share that thought with those of us who know you, but those who don't know you that well, to understand why you would select these particular cuts that you would have, Queen Jen Jade and Antoinette sing along with Janice.
Well, it all goes back to my father, Jose Sanabria, from Guanica, Puerto Rico, from el barrio of Ensenada. Well, the town of Ensenada in Guanica, and the barrio of Guaipao, which
Mm-hmm.
is where Yomo is from.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, the time period that I grew up in was the most exciting time period for the music and the most exciting time period for radio in New York City. And also, as I said, I'm a product of my environment. You saw jazz artists on TV. You saw Latino artists on TV. I saw Tito Puente on the Ed Sullivan Show. I saw Candido on the Ed Sullivan Show. All these great variety shows had jazz orchestras as the filler music that they would play for the audience when the announcer said we're going to go to a
So
commercial.
great. Mm-hmm.
You had the Tonight Show Orchestra with Johnny Carson. You had the David Frost Orchestra for the David Frost Show. You had the Dick Cavett Show. Victor Paz was the lead trumpet player in that orchestra led by Bobby Rosengarten. So I was being fed all of this when I was a kid. I saw Buddy Rich and Duke Ellington and Count Basie, all of these people on TV. I heard jazz in all of the cartoons, from Johnny Quest to the Jetsons, the Flintstones. Forget about it, because Hoyt Curtin, who was a staff musician for Hanna-Barbera, he wrote all the themes for all those cartoons, and he was a jazz musician. He was a jazz piano player. So inadvertently, I was being force-fed all of this incredible music from the cartoons, from the variety shows. I was into the Beatles like everybody else. I sang She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, and all that stuff when I was a little kid. But even though that was exciting, when I saw these great jazz orchestras on TV and I saw the drummers that they would be using, people like Sam Woodyard and others, the great Buddy Rich, I was just flabbergasted.
Mm-hmm.
And then the coup de grace was when I was 12 years old. I saw Maestro Tito Puente perform in front of the projects I grew up in on East 153rd Street and Cortlandt Avenue, 681, the Melrose Projects. There was a summer concert series that was throughout the whole city because at that time period, as you well know, the Bronx was burning and they just wanted the people to chill, so private donors gave money to the New York City Department of Parks, and all these concerts were happening. So they started building a stage in front on that corner right next in front of the bodega there. And who played? Machito and his orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
I vividly remember them doing Dale Jamon a la Jeva.
Yeah. The Frank Machito Grillo. Fantastic.
And I'm
yeah.
going, wow. And
Mario Bauza, yeah.
I lived on the 12th floor. I go down to the 9th floor because my friend Marvin could see better from his window. And he goes to me, yeah, man, this is cool. And it was like a little mini Woodstock. The whole neighborhood came out. And people from other neighborhoods came. And he goes, yeah. I said, we got to go down there. Nah, let's stay up here. It's more comfortable. Plus, we could throw spitballs at people and stuff, And I started laughing. I go, no, man. We go down. And Tito Puente is setting, and finally we get to and he starts playing, Vamos rumbero que la rumba ya. Man, forget it.
That was it.
Points to the saxophones. They stand up. He takes an incredible timbales solo. I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my freaking life.
That's it.
But the secret to all of that was my father, Jose Sanabria, who I mentioned before. He was a machinist. It took him 2 hours to get to work in Long Island, 2 hours to get back. And he bought himself a lazy boy chair. And his ritual was when he got home, he'd sit in that lazy boy chair and just listen to music. And my mother told me, mira, si tú quieres, siéntate ahí al lado de tu papá. Puedes hacer tu tarea ahí. So I sit there with your father. My mother, Juanita, told me, and do your homework. So I listened to what he listened to, and he listened to everything from Harry Belafonte live at Carnegie Hall to Ahmad Jamal to Machito, Tito Puente, Tito Rodriguez, Sergio Mendez and Brazil 66, Trio Vega Bajeño. This is all of the music I was exposed to. He was a big fan of Motown. The first 3 records I remember hearing when I was a little kid was I'm In with the In Crowd.
Mm-hmm.
By Dobie Gray.
Okay, the original. Okay, it wasn't Ramsey. Okay,
And Reach Out by the Four Tops.
Mm-hmm.
And Trio Vega Bajeño's Recuerdos de Navidad.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the first 3 records I remember hearing. And he exposed me to everything. Like I said, one day he brings home Más Que Nada by Sergio Mendez and Brazil 66. And I'm listening to it, and I got enthralled by the music. And I just kept playing that record over and over and over again. And I'm listening, and I can hear the bass drum. Joao Palma was the drummer. Later, I found out who he was, etc. Sergio Mendes doing these little hip blues licks. Later, I found out he was influenced by Horace Silver. Anyway, my mother got worried, told my father, listen, something's wrong with your son. I think he's autistic. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, he keeps listening to that record over and over.
I gotcha.
So he goes, let me see what's going on. And so he comes over, and I felt a presence, and I turn around, and my father's there in the doorway smiling. And he goes, why do you like the music so much? He goes, I don't know, the beat and they're singing, but it sounds like Spanish, but it isn't. He goes, and he starts to explain, you know what they're speaking? They're speaking in Portuguese. He goes, get the globe. I get the globe, and he points to Portugal. This is Portugal. He goes, this is Spain. This is Africa. This is where we come from. These places. And I go, well, how do they, what do you mean Africa? He goes, well, the rhythms, you like it so much because of the rhythm. The rhythm comes from Africa. Our language comes from Spain. And it gets to Cuba, Puerto Rico. He's explaining me the whole thing.
He broke it down for you. He broke it down. I love that. I love that. It's interesting how you put that in context as far as your DNA, because obviously your DNA starts with your dad, your mom as well. But your DNA is flourish, right? So your roots are your roots, but that tree of yours has branches that brings in those other sounds. You mentioned the Brazilian, you mentioned Motown, you mentioned things of that nature. I'm going to bring Queen Jen Jade on because Jen Jade has some roots that I think touch on that whole thing of having roots, from the Dominican side, from the Puerto Rican side, being in New York, the whole 9 yards. Queen Jen Jade Ledesma, saludos, bienvenida al programa. Qué alegría verte. You've been so nice there, just sitting over there. Antoinette, we can still see you. You're on mute, but don't worry, I'm going to bring you on. I want you to drive carefully. Queen Jen Jade, how are you?
Hi, good morning, wherever everybody is in the world.
So as you listen to El Maestro Bobby Sanabria, share with us how is it you come into this orbit of El Maestro Bobby Sanabria and the Multiverse Orchestra, and in particular on this subject, Vox Humana.
I guess it all goes back to the West Village and the first audition for the Afro-Cuban ensemble, like the orchestra there at school, at the new school. And that was basically, that was it, the induction and the exposition. I remember the hardest thing to do was to keep the clave. It was so nerve-wracking because it's such a loud, piercing sound, the wood. And then, Bobby's there and man in the truck and just getting all the things and alignment and just full steam ahead. And I'm just like, is this working? And then shortly thereafter, he had assigned me a song that Marilyn Pupo wrote, and I love female composers, Soy Antiana. And it talked about the Great Antilles and such, and the fusion of the cultures in the Caribbean. And there began Keeping Clave and a multisyllabic song and the execution of it. So it was like, and I remember practicing. It was hella hard. And I was like, Mommy, mira. Da, da, da. And she would just like lecture me. No tiene que sonar como así. No es, So all the nuances of just, como me siento tan antiana, me andan pidiendo definición. And I was like, it took me forever, just getting all that coordination down. And then he's like, okay, now we're going to add some movement. And, it's like, what? So never does the learning never stops with Maestro Bobby. The first time I had to play Guido, we were on stage at David Geffen Hall. It's like, here, go. And I'm like, oh no, help me. Crash course, the sound check. Orestes comes over, he's like, this is how you got to do it. And there you go. It's always an exploration and always a lesson. But the best part is the trust.
No, there's got to be trust. And the fact that he tapped you says a lot, because I have a lot of respect for Bobby and what his work has been, at least recording, but also live in the performances. And you mentioned your audition. Coming to that, tell us about your musical roots, even though you have ancestry from, sister Dominican Republic and for Puerto Rico as well. Tell us about your musical roots before that day in which you were auditioning for the Maestro Bobby Sanabria.
Okay. New York native from the Bronx, the northeast, like Morris Park area. My parents, I was a geriatric child. So, they were from the old world, the children of the Great Depression, always my father, 3-piece suit, fedora, beautiful Dominican man, chocolate with green eyes, and mommy, white Puerto Rican would it was a crazy fusion, and they're very fashioned and savvy. And my dad was a complete dandy. So in the house, my mom would always play La Lupe, Tito Puente, El Gran Combo. And of course, as a kid, you're like, oh, it's too loud, especially on the weekends. I was obsessed with doo-wop. My mom would kind of make my sister go to the Golden Oldies concerts, and I'd come home with the cassette books. I love the oldies. This is crazy. I don't know why. But I do have a very fond memory of watching PBS, and I was fixated on this woman in a muumuu who was sweating, and her wig was a little twisted. And it was Sarah Vaughan saying "Send the Clowns," which is my mom's favorite song. And that was it. I started playing clarinet. And so when I was at the Dalcross School of Music, I had to take piano lessons, and I was playing clarinet, first clarinet and second clarinet in the honor band and stuff like that. So that was the induction.
That was the induction. So you're hearing bebop. You're hearing doo-wop, which is, what you were listening to. But when the mom would put on weekends, put that record on, you were hearing these other things. So as you were discovering your voice, you mentioned Sarah Vaughan.
Yeah.
What voice were you using? Meaning, what songs, what genres were you on stage when you were young, when you had that opportunity to be in front of people? What was it that was coming out of, Queen Jennifer's voice back then?
Jeez, golly gosh. Mary J. Blige.
Uh huh.
I mean, it was all about like Ram Puba and like all the like early hip hop, like the 90s and stuff like that. I just, all the kids would like, you go to school, you'd like memorize things and try to, it was riffs, Lauryn Hill, like just getting those riffs was really, really difficult. Mom always played Dinah Washington,
Mm-hmm.
the Andrews Sisters and Julie London, um, Natalie Cole, like
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Those things were playing all the time. Yeah.
So the
And
voices,
she also played Edith Piaf a lot as well, and Judy
really?
Garland, Barbara
That's
Streisand.
interesting. Your mom had
Yeah,
an eclectic, beautiful taste, by the way.
that
God
was
bless her.
mommy.
Mommy,
She
God bless you. You had
all the
eclectic, beautiful
LPs.
taste. No,
Yeah.
I want to now momentarily pause with you because I want Queen Antoinette to jump in because your flow as to how you get to where you are and the time period in which you get to where you are compared to Queen Antoinette, I think is something of interest to me. And then we're going to come back and bridge it to this particular project. Queen Antoinette, you are on mute, so if you can unmute yourself so I can hear you, it would be great. And again, drive carefully,
Here
sister.
I am. I
And there
pulled
you
over.
are. So, Queen,
Gotta pull over and stop.
you've heard Queen Jennifer speak about, that moment in time in which a master voice Sanabria brings him and says, "Here you go, clave. You better learn this quick. And here's the song. Learn it because the great Celia Cruz sang this." And she's like, "Okay, I can do that. Yeah, of course. Let me go home and practice it." So, talk to us about your roots, Queen Antoinette, because your roots take a different turn, a different route to get to where you are today. So, just share that with our friends who are watching at this moment and listening.
Um, I'm from the womb of a singer. My mother had, if you could have Ella Fitzgerald and Mahalia Jackson combined, that was the voice of my mother. She was one of the earliest classes that made it into arts high school and knew it before. Matter of fact, they weren't letting in African Americans, so she was one
Wow.
of the first classes to go and sing, and really, would sing this crazy song, you make my cheeks turn from white to rosy red. And she said everybody made fun of her. She said, but the music teacher loved me, and I loved her, and I loved listening to those incredible, just the sound and the resonance of her voice went through not just our house, but the tenants on the first floor. And I can remember the woman downstairs saying, "Girl, your mother was singing the other day." She said, I just sat and drank my coffee and listened to your mother." I said, "Yeah."
I
I
love
said,
that. So
"Yeah."
give us a little context. First, your mother's name.
Piccola Montague out of a place called Pelham, Georgia, and my father, James Montague Sr., out of a place called Zebulon, North Carolina. And
Mm-hmm.
his family were slaves. He was born in 1913. They were
Mm-hmm.
tied to the land. When he got my mother pregnant and was getting ready to come up to marry her, come up north to Jersey area to marry her, four men met in the middle of the night to say, "Oh, really? You're not leaving anywhere until we are reassured who's going to pick your share." He told
Mm.
stories of overseer on a horse with a whip, cracking a whip at his mother. Push, push, pick
Mm.
faster than that, Susie. So that grounding, those stories he never told until I was in my mid 30s, because
Mm-hmm.
he said I never wanted my children to hate white people the way I hated them when I came out of the
Mm.
South.
Mm.
So I come from very open, very giving parents, very lovers of music. And, I just remember being spellbound watching Mahalia Jackson sing at the mall in Washington during Martin Luther King's
Mm-hmm.
speech. So I've done some civil rights music, world peace and the kid jazz. And so that foundation, blues is the roots of American
Oh,
music.
for
It
sure.
is the foundation of
Yeah.
country, western, rock and roll,
Mm-hmm.
R&B,
Mm-hmm.
jazz.
Mm-hmm.
It's the foundation. We are all griots here.
Mm-hmm.
16th century artisans, musicians,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
poets,
Mm-hmm.
creators, storytellers.
For
Even the
sure.
stories that we're telling now is all under the umbrella of what begets a griot, what begets people who are committed to an art form that has been systematically suppressed, so that you're not so interested. But in another 20 years, you will find all white kids doing this music, and you will find very few of the architects, the inventors, to do it. So we must keep shows like this, artists like Bobby and Jen Jade, and all of us inspired, because it's very, very disheartening. So you have to find the morsels of joy inside of your music and your
Amen.
sound and your art form and your
Amen.
story.
Amen. That being said, you as well as Bobby and Jennifer are chroniclers of our lives as African descendants in this hemisphere. And, you know, chroniclers are the ones who not only tell the stories, but are making sure that our ancestors' stories are relevant to today and that will be the inspiration to the descendants of the future. And so, therefore, I pay homage to all of you every time I share your passion, your creativity, your art, and your love for whatever artistic form you have endeavored in. And so I thank you for that. Your mom, a history maker and barrier breaker, obviously, from what you've shared with us, your dad as well. And so, put place for us. Is this New York? Is this New Jersey? Where are we in the context of mom doing what mom was doing?
In the great city of Newark, New Jersey.
Amen to that.
I was born and brought home to the projects that were across from where the uprising or riots happened to be in Newark, New Jersey. And we kept hearing, stories that the riots are coming, and there was a police officer that beat up a cab driver,
Mm-hmm.
and so it set it off there. But we had moved to South 13th Street, and this is in the 60s, so I thought that I could be Diana freaking Ross. I had the hairbrush in my hand. I was constantly in the mirror doing the shoulder act. And then when Michael Jackson came around, I would give shows in my back hallway for like 5 cents, 2 cookies, and a cup of juice. I didn't realize the cup of juice was pear wine my mother was making in the basement. And so two of us got sick, and two of us got on punishment. Which of the two was I? Sick and on punishment, but it
Oh,
tasted like Kool-Aid, but it definitely got us a little
oh.
buzz. So the Motown sound,
You're
but I
you're
also
breaking up
had
a little bit
parents.
there, Antoinette. You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, the Motown
You're breaking
sound.
up, so I hope that you're not. There you go. Uh huh.
Okay, the
Okay, we
Motown
can hear you now.
sound.
You had broken up for a little bit there.
Okay, the Motown sound, but my parents were older parents. My mother was 45 when she had me, and my dad 52. So I can identify with Jen Jade as far as having parents that were a little more seasoned. So we listened to the Ink Spots, we listened to the sounds of Ella, we listened to some of the Sarah, but we also really listened to Jimi Hendrix, because I had a brother who was into rock music, and Yes, and I had the stylistics were in the house, the rubber band. I didn't have to really buy too many records, but my first record that I purchased, really, the first dollar I made singing was Stevie Wonder's My Cherie Amour, because my mom took me to the record store to buy the record. And so the man who owned the record store said, "Well, how does it go? Well, let me hear you sing it." And so I started singing. He said, "I can't hear it. Wait, let me get this
So,
little microphone." And he lifted me up and put me on the counter with the store microphone. And I'm singing. There's about 6 people in the store. And I'm la, 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 la. He said, everybody clapped. He gave me the dollar and the record. He said, "Now remember, this is your first dollar that you earned as a performing artist. I think that's what
there
you're
you
going to
go.
be." And all the way
There you
home,
go. I love it.
I
I
can
love
remember
it.
my
I
mother
love it.
kind of like looking like this, smiling. But she was the amazing architect, as far as I'm concerned, my DNA of being a griot in this art form, and that I am family with the folks
Antoinette,
here.
I'm going
Bobby,
I'm going to interrupt you a minute, Antoinette.
great,
It,
no
it
problem.
appears you might be in a zone where you're dropping a lot. So I don't know if your internet is dropping, but there's a zone that you're blocking and you're freezing. So you might move
It
to a zone where you're really strong on the internet. But I want to get
Okay,
back
we'll
to you.
do
But
that.
Bobby, we hear these stories, and Bobby, we hear these stories both from Jennifer and Antoinette, and they're similar in many ways to your story, right? Where you unpacked about your eclectic sounds that we're listening, and the role that radio played in particular back then, and the fact that we could hear all this great music that was so broad in context, right? It was Afrocentric, but it was broad in context, right? That you could hear stylistics, that you could hear Jimi Hendrix, that you could hear Tito Puente, and you could hear Machito, but at the same time you could hear, everybody else involved like Sarah and all those great ones. Before I go to you, Bobby, there's some people want to say hello, so let's make sure we say hello to them. Jose Arroyo says, "Hola, Jose Divina, we're here enjoying your show." From Florida, Lorex says, "Salud y bendiciones, Jose." From Medellín, Colombia, saludos, Octavio Sánchez. Carmen says, "Hola." Luis Rodriguez is also tuning in. Saludos, Jose, los invitados, mi respeto a todos. Jimmy Camacho says, "Saludos, Jose, tremendo show." David Calvo, one of my field producers, is just tuning in. He's bedridden with COVID. I'm sorry to hear that. David, I hope you feel better. Joe Lucinda Lopez, love the show. Thank you. And then we're going to come back as we continue the conversation. So, Bobby, as we hear both Jennifer and Queen Antoinette speak about that eclectic sound that they heard, when you thought of these three singers, tell us how you knew about Antoinette, and tell us again about Jennifer, her coming and doing that audition that she spoke of. When you were thinking about these voices, how was it that these three in particular were the voices that you wanted as female voices, women voices, singing on this album?
Well, I wanted three vocalists, as I said, that were versatile, legitimate jazz improvisers, jazz singers, but all individuals that represented me as a Puerto Rican growing up in New York City. See, the advantage that we have, and I say advantage in a really positive way, is that we Puerto Ricanos that grow up in New York City, we grow up with the African American experience because we grow up next to our African American brothers and sisters. And so it was no strange thing for me to love the Temptations singing Ball of Confusion, and then at the same time listening to Tito Puente doing Niña y Señora, or Arsenio Rodriguez doing, La Gente del Bronx, or Sergio Mendez doing Más que Nada, or listening to John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I mean, it was just, that's what I grew up with. And that's culturally what I represent. And that is the New Yorican experience. It's all that in a bag of chips, as we would say in the South Bronx. So I'm just fortunate that I grew up during that time period and in the area that I grew up in. So these three ladies represent all of that in terms of my musical upbringing. Antoinette brings the hardcore.
And if I can interrupt 1 second, Bobby, the reverse is that our African American neighbors also then took on the Afro Latin as well, right? Because they were not just singing doo wop and everything else. They knew about dancing Afro Cuban mambos and cha cha chas and things, and they would throw the very few Spanish words. Plus the other thing was, Bobby, the people who came to eat dinner at your home also represented those cultures, right? So it wasn't just Papo, tu amigo, tu pana del barrio. I mean, there was Sonny that came down, and Sonny would come in, and your mom would say, "Hey, Sonny, you like this?" And then Sonny would be like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then he would say, "My mom cooked something like this." And then you go to Sonny's house, and he'd say, "My mom cooked something like this as well." So there was that crossover of cultures that then mingled, and we realized in many ways, and this is something I hope those who are listening understand, we realize that as African descendants, we have more in common than we had that differentiate us. We may have spoken a different language. There may have been a history that was somewhat different based on the historical factors that were, but there was something that was very close. And what it was that African descendancy of what we have, right? And when you heard Queen Antoinette speak about the roots of music here in this country, et cetera,
you nailed it on the head, Jose. And what unites us is rhythm, and our rhythms come from Africa. There's no doubt it. There's no doubt about it. We are united by that, and it's interesting. Some of the baddest.
May I say one thing? One thing?
Let me just finish up real quick. Some of the baddest mambo dances. Some of the baddest mambo dances that I have ever seen have been African Americans. Some, baddest meaning great mambo dancers I've seen, and I saw them when I was young. So there you go.
So the question, I think, was, how did you come across us as singers? We've been out here. I've been out here 30 years. I actually had the nerve to ask Bobby to play in my band as the drummer, the Antoinette Montague Experience. So he got a chance to hear me do the blues and experience it. He got
Yeah.
a chance to hear me do I Love You, Porgy, and experience it. Janice has been out here for years. Jen Jade has been out here for years. So it's great to be enveloped in the amazing world of Bobby, but he grabbed us as individual, strong band leaders and artisans, and that we can all come together with some equity. I just didn't fall out my mother's womb last week. I've been
Mm.
out here for a minute. And the beauty is that this project opens up a conversation that needs to be had inside of we're 99.9 the same genomes. That means we're
Mhm.
all related. That means we're
Mhm.
all family. So I
Mhm.
hope we can get one welcome to the family reunion inside of here on the count of three. One, two, three.
Welcome to the
Welcome
family.
to the
We're
family
here. We're
reunion.
here.
A-
We're
And
here.
this recording of Vox Humana with this great multiverse big band of Bobby Sanabria's is about the
Mhm.
gathering of billions and trillions of heartbeats, notes, flavor, feelings, emotion. When I get people that walk up after a show like we did last night, and we was a great show in New Canaan at Grace Farms, and people are like, "Wow, I almost cried with I love you, Porgy," or they're not even sure, they don't even speak Spanish, but they felt the vibes that Jen Jade put across that stage last night to get to them to walk out and perhaps melt some of the cold steel effects of racism, bias, and hatred. So
Mhm.
that's what we are about. And there's one song on there, Who Taught You That, which speaks to people walking into supermarkets and shooting up black folk in churches, etc. Who taught you to hate?
Mhm.
Who taught you
Mhm.
that? Who taught
Mhm.
you not to have some joy inside of your heart? We hope that it lands on everyone. We hope that everyone calls your favorite jazz radio stations, your regular R&B stations, Latin stations, and encourage them to play this music so that we encourage this great artist and band leader to keep making music and not be so concerned about the marketing games that are out there with some of these big awards, etc., but to absolutely fall on our young so that they understand you have more than just the culture. 50 years of hip hop, congratulations, but it's
Mhm.
103 years of the blues.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
103 years of the blues, and
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
more of everything else that we're talking about
That's
inside
true.
of
That's true.
Africa. So it's a lot of love and importance. Jen, you sitting over there quiet. I'm gonna mute my mic and listen for a minute. Thank you
No,
for giving me a shot, but
no,
like I said, I really respect Bobby and his upbringing, etc. But we all are coming together with our collective art forms and collective upbringings, and this is where it's meeting on this Vox Humana CD.
oh no, it is, and for me, and you've shared your thoughts such right on every single topic that you touch upon, because what it is for me, this album, and one of the things you brought out is, we were talking about Bobby's upbringing. Many of us, realized that I wasn't born or raised in New York. I was born in Puerto Rico, came here when I was 20, but immediately when I came to New York as a college student in Ohio, when I would visit, I would see, okay, this is something that's very special, where I'm walking into an apartment building where my host is Puerto Rican, but yet the people around the table are not just Puerto Rican, they're African Americans as well. And I'm walking into a apartment building where my host is African American, but the people around the table and the woman who's welcoming me knows very much about me as a Puerto Rican, even though she's African American. So that was very special. That what made New York for me very special. But something you said, Queen Antoinette, and I want Jennifer to expand on this, is the fact that Bobby, you perform with Queen Antoinette. So you've had, it's not just like you're the epicenter and everybody comes and performs with Bobby. You, as a performer, are able to perform with these other artists and so like saying, this person fits what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to do. Let me make sure I make a point of reaching out to them. Queen Antoinette, let me ring you into what I'm trying to do. Jennifer, let me ring you into what I'm trying to do. So, Jennifer, when you first came across Queen Antoinette and Janice, what went through your mind singing with these two illustrious women?
Um, I first met Antoinette at my senior recital because we had the same voice teacher at that time. Um, and that was our first meeting. And I thought she was cool. I didn't really know her. Flash forward, I never met Janice until Bobby. I don't really listen to a lot of things contemporary. I live under a rock in the 1930s, and I'm also really never ever in this country. So it's more of the reason not to run into either of my empresses. Um, and partners in crime on stage, who I love and miss tremendously when I'm not near them. Yeah, so Bobby and ringing us all together was also like another read and greet, and it's also a testament to sisterhood because people always think that women are catty, which is such a fallacy and a myth that doesn't make sense. We actually spoke about this in the cabin yesterday with Gabriela, the flautist of the multiverse. She's amazing. Yeah, but it was just a testament to all the travels and the work we've all done abroad individually as well. You know, when he called upon me, I speak four languages fluently: French, Spanish, and Portuguese. I understand Italian. I sing in about 13 languages, and I live in Paris part time, and also Buenos Aires and the Cerro de Bahia, Brazil. So yeah, so meeting the ladies is almost like it's a memory for that which we haven't really. I don't know. It's like the continuum and the transference of the overall overarching goal of things. Because spiritually, it's another thing. Like people are so fixated on colorism when really it's just a matter of culture and exposition, and education and awareness, self awareness. Because when I travel abroad, oftentimes you know, this last couple of years I've been to Brazil. You know, this woman, the last time I was there, actually end of July, some girl pulls me aside. So I'm over there. I train the cats. I was like, yo, we're going to do this arrangement from the multiverse. We're going to do capuito, ta, ta, ta. And then, you know, I learn from Maestro and I educate my audiences too in real time. So I'm talking to the cats in Portuguese about the Puerto Rican music. I talk about my heritage. And this lady said to me, who do you think that you are? And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she's like, I mean, like, what color do you think you are? Like, what do you, I said, well, I'm Afro Latina. And she was like, and she laughed. And I pulled up a picture of my parents and she saw the biracial aspect of what that looks like. And she just, her jaw fell agape. And she was just like, and I said, yep. How do you feel though? How do you feel? That's more important. Like, you know, so it's an interesting thing. So I think being within this group has also affirmed the power and the omnipotence that we have in our individual genetic autonomy and that which we want to claim and give life to.
But you know, you said something, and Queen Antoinette said it as well. And I think one of the things I've come to appreciate in the 48 years that I've known Bobby, and I respect and admire at the same time, is that we open ourselves to not being geofenced based on this aspect of our DNA. And by that, let me explain. In many occasions, I will come across folks who, if it isn't rice and beans, they're not going to eat, right? Eso no arroz con pollo. No, yo no voy a comer. Oh, have a salad. What? Salad? Wait a minute. It's got to be rice and beans and not chuleta or else I'm not eating. Rice and beans and not chuleta or else I'm not eating. Which I understand and I appreciate and I respect. But the ability to move from everyday eating arroz con pollo or arroz con habichuelas y chuleta to being able to explore and open your palate to all these other flavors that the world has to offer from east to west, from north to south, in my opinion, enriches us not only as human beings, but connects us as human beings, right? Because I feel like when my palate is tasting this from some other place, it's like I'm now feeling that person's DNA through their nourishment of my body and soul is adding them to my persona. And the same thing happens to music. When Jennifer, you say you sing in how many languages do you say?
Like 13, 14, because I work in a cave in Paris with a lot of other singers and we all cross culture. And we take couplets in different languages. So we sing in Wolof and Serbian and Congolese, you know, like.
And so that means if I were to put a stamp in your passport that says Jennifer J. Ledesma, Queen, I would say citizen of the world, that has all of these parts of you that you explore through your music and your song, which you do very well, by the way, in this album, Bobby, which also brings me to the piece that you're speaking about, the Brazilian influence, because you purposely wanted that in this album, and Jennifer comes through for you on this. So talk about that, please.
Well, I fell in love with
Kobe.
Brazil. I fell in love with Brazilian music through my father, Jose. His taste was very eclectic. My father should have been a history teacher. He was a machinist. He
Mhm.
was a working class guy. I love my father so much because every day, like I said, he 2 hours going to work, 2 hours coming back, never complained, nothing. Es parte de siendo del ethos de la identidad puertorriqueña, ser un
Mhm.
obrero,
Mhm.
ser orgulloso de ser un obrero, being proud that you're a worker. And I always looked at myself uh, as a working class musician as well. Even though I have this fantastic orchestra, I lead Ascensión, my Cuarteto H, my Sexteto Ibiano. I'm an educator. I've done so many things in this industry and gotten a lot of recognition for it. But basically, I've looked at myself as a working class musician.
And
So I
you're
run the band that way. Everybody has an equal voice. Everybody gets a taste. There isn't just 2 or 3 soloists in the band. This is a very unique band in that
it
sense.
is. It
This
is.
is a big band. Everyone in this band is a soloist. Everyone.
Let's listen to this.
Chicarinhos e um calor que tem no fundo do o que eu sinto por você.
All right, everybody, party.
De mim é o amor. O que sinto por você e você e você em mim. O que sinto por você dentro de mim.
Chupa limonada pra meia dama educada. Chupa que chupa.
Quero ver você e Leaie passar por aqui. Quero ver você e Leaie passar por aqui. Amor, é o amor.
Ordem e progresso.
Fire!
What it is.
Jennifer J. Ledesma. Please welcome to the stage.
George Washington Bridge.
The queen of the blues and jazz. Antoinette Montague.
Hey everybody, let's have some fun. You only live once, and when you're dead, you're done. Let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. Who cares if you're young or old? Let the good times roll. Don't sit there mumbling, talking trash. If you wanna have a ball, y'all, you got to spend that cash. Let the good times roll. Come on, club, let the good times roll. Who cares if you're young or old? Let the good times roll. Roll, roll. Hey, let the good times roll. Say, let the good times roll. Let it fill your soul. Music in
good times, bro. Bobby,
Yeah,
who's that
yeah.
on trombone, man? Is that Dr. Washburn?
No, that is a former student of mine at the Manhattan School of Music, the great young Armando Vergara, who is Cubano. He is half Puerto Rican, half Cuban, and
Listen
from
to this.
Miami, Florida. And again, this is the thing I've been talking about, and we've talked about this before. Jennifer alluded to it. It's not about color; it's about culture.
Mm-hmm.
So Armando's just bringing the blues to you. And somebody might say, that's not very maybe sophisticated politically, socially. Say, hey, man, how can this young Cuban Puerto Rican kid play like the blues like that? And he's from Miami. It's because of the culture he grew up
There
in.
you go. Listen to this.
Nobody play them cheap. They got 50 cents more that they gonna keep. So let the big times roll. Wave your hand in the air. Your other on your hip. And shake, and shake, and shake, shake, shake. No matter what the weather, when we come together, it's always a pleasure. No matter whatever, everybody in the house scream. Let the good times roll.
Queen Antoinette just taking it to another level. Let the good
Bring it
times
into
roll.
church. Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, yes, indeedy.
Bless
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
I love
And,
it.
and so then again, it's like
Thank you. I
somebody-
appreciate being heard. That's what we all desire to be. I asked someone when I was interviewing them, why is it that musicians get so frustrated in jazz or blues? And they said, pretty much because everybody wants to be heard. Uh-oh, who taught you that? Is this heavy song?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to put this on. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen.
Who taught you that and said it was love?
swinging slow like the Count Basie Orchestra.
Who taught you that and said it was love? Well, they lied. They told a great big juicy fat lie. Who taught you to hate and said it was wise? Who taught you that and said it was civilized? Who taught you that? Well, it ain't gonna win you no prize. Hey, hey, they lied. They told a great big juicy fat lie. Yeah. Ah, baby, I'm here to tell you, you're making the strangest moves. You gotta get into trying to be good if you wanna get in life's best groove. Oh, who taught you that and said it was love? Huh? Yes, who taught you that and said it was love? Huh? I wonder who taught them that and said it was love. Oh, well, they lied. They told a great big juicy fat lie.
Talk about
Yeah.
So there's three elements to this in my mind. A, the lyrics, obviously. B, the singing interpretation. Lord, 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 what can I say, Queen? But then the band. How many musicians do we have on stage at that moment, Bowie?
Well, with the entire orchestra and I don't separate the singers from the orchestra.
I gotcha.
They are musicians.
Yes.
So the entire orchestra is 24 musicians.
So
There's
listen.
5 saxes, 4 trumpets, 4 trombones. There's an added to that is an electric violin and a flute specialist, and I'll talk about that later why I added that. Then we have a conga player, Orestes Aurantes, who is also a fantastic vocalist too. He's one of our secret weapons.
Right.
Matthew Gonzalez, tremendous. Both Matthew and Orete are the finest percussionists out there today from the younger generation. They're very professional, very respectful of tradition. They know tradition, and they're very extremely versatile. When I met them, they were young students at Boys Harbor, and through me, they've gotten involved in expanding their horizons with Brazilian music, odd meters. They're excellent sight readers. Makes my life a lot easier. I came from a generation where basically a lot of times in the bands I'd be playing, I'd be the only person of the percussion that could read. Well, that's frustrating because even though people can, you need your ears, but it makes it frustrating in rehearsals. You have to repeat things over and over again for percussionists that can't read. And Matthew and Orestes are fantastic. Matthew Gonzalez, not only is an incredible bongocero, but he's an incredible player of the traditions of Puerto Rico on the panderetas en plena, barriles de bomba. And he's also a fantastic dancer. Then we have piano, bass, and we have the 3 vocalists. So that adds up to 24 musicians. And we have another percussionist as well that plays hand percussion, Takao Heisho, who happens to be a fantastic arranger too. So we have all of those elements at my disposal, and the band sounds very unique. And the thing about this band is that, as you can hear, we can be a concert jazz orchestra, but instantaneously at a moment's notice, we turn into a dance orchestra.
For sure. And, as I was listening to this, you mentioned the count. As I was listening to this arrangement, right, I was seeing the count. I was seeing his guitar player. You remember his guitar player just
Freddie Green.
Remember him? Remember him?
Yeah.
Just doing it like really smooth back there. It was so like subtle. You could hear it, but you really didn't. It wasn't overpowering, but you heard him, complimenting that. And I'm listening to this. There's no guitar, but I'm hearing the guitar as you're performing. Listen to this.
Talking about the great Freddie Green. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that tempo that we took. That is one of the hardest tempos to play in jazz, especially with a big band. Playing, swinging, but at a slow tempo. It separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls.
No, it was great. It was great. I'm going to go to the next cut. I love you, Porgy, but there's some comments here that I definitely need to share with you. In addition to folks going wow and things of that nature, Francois, let's share this one, everybody. Saludos, Jose, and your guests. Thanks for the show. I just came by, but to my knowledge, Master Bobby Sanabria is the only musician from the Latin community that had the brilliant idea to adapt a Frank Zappa tune. Might be the Grand Wazoo, but not sure. That shows his open-minded arrangement is true. And not speaking of his great contribution to Latin jazz genre, being with the Quarteto Big Band. True respect, Master Francois, Festival Toros y Salsa en Francia. He sends you his regards. And that is true, Francois. You did take that leap of faith to do something like that, which, not to people.
Yeah, that's
really?
Grand Wazoo.
Yeah.
We did that on the Big Band Urban Folktales album, and people calling me up, go, man, I didn't know you were into Zappa. And I had to say it because I said, why? Because I'm Puerto Rican, right?
There you go. Carmenza Buff just says, wow, they're listening to music. Continue.
Yeah, so, it's people, thank you, Mary. Fantastic photographer, Mary Kent.
Yeah.
Love her madly. I'm telling you, I'm a product, I said, of my environment. All of this stuff is part of my upbringing, and I play the most versatile percussion instrument that there is. The instrument that can fit in any context. Drum set.
Yes.
I mean, everybody knows me as a timbalero, and I've played on many recordings as a conguero, bongocero. I've even played classical percussion, timpani, vibes, marimba, all that stuff. But most people know me now as a drummer. And it's a long time for me to get identified as that, because every time I would get called up, it was always to be a percussionist. And I would always say, yeah, but I play drums too. And I'd be getting called by jazz people to play percussion. They go, hey, do me a favor on the break. Can you teach the drummer some Latin rhythm or something so we can play the next? Then I realized they call me here to give some Latin percussion flavor to the music, but they want me to teach this guy, and I go, well, if you're gonna do that, man, you have to pay me extra because I don't give lessons on stage.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And
I gotcha.
if you want, let me play drums, and I'll get a colleague of mine who's a great percussionist, etc. So that's in that context. Saying that, it's been hard for me as a Puerto Rican in the jazz world, being identified legitimately as a jazz drummer, and the inspiration for that, Tito Puente, who was a great jazz drummer. Many people don't know that. He applied that type of technique to the timbales. And the great William Correa, Puerto Rican from Spanish.
Steve Berrios, another one. Steve Berrios was another great drummer.
Steve's father.
Yeah, great drummers. And we have some young Turks right now. Henry Cole is one that comes to mind who plays with Miguel Shannon.
He was my student.
Henry, we've got Daphne Prieto, obviously from Cuba. We have Oresel Negro, and we have a number of percussionists who play drums, like Ignacio Berroa, who we have to acknowledge being great drummers. They're not just percussionists. We're listening to in the background, just so you listen to this arrangement of this song. Jennifer, from the moment you did that audition with Maestro Sanabria to now, how many years are we talking?
A bunch.
That's enough of an answer. So tell me, how have you seen yourself grow musically and also as not an artist and musician, but as a persona because of all of this experience you've been having worldwide and also opportunities like this to engage with Queen Antoinette and Janice and also El Maestro?
Well, I remember specifically when I went, because Bobby would always prescribe us books to read and such, to profound our knowledge, rather to make it, deeper and much more outreaching and outstretching. And that's like an olive branch into an abyss of wonderful things. I was in Salsa Bahia, taking dance classes. And I remember giving him a call because I had just conducted an interview in just all Portuguese. And he had been talking about just cross rhythms, Afro descendants, and all this other stuff. So I called him to thank him because I feel so emotional. Bobby, I love him so much. It's like chosen family, Antoinette's chosen family. We exchanged such a long and beautiful, enriching hug yesterday before the show. He talked about being a warrior last night on stage, and it's quite a militia that has been assembled within oneself. The voices of what you hear in your mind to keep forth, like, Antoinette talked about being present to go and educate the future and to also honor those that came before. And to give that perpetual homage to that which we have sequentially through our living existence in this particular cycle in this body. And Bobby has always been in the wings of my life, and I feel gifted and blessed that now Janice and Antoinette will also be in the wings of my life. Bobby also called me up to sing at his mom's passing. The Ave María. Yo no conocía esa canción, pero yo digo, okay, no puedo decirle no, tengo 24 horas para aprenderlo y aquí vamos, so it's the kind of thing when you're called upon by the family to pay homage to the family. It's just, I don't even know. It's like a passing of a torch that existed within, and then it's like someone saw something and you went, and then it's just lit. And that kind of lights the pathways into what you would be navigating towards to learning. So that call in Brazil was deep, and I ended up meeting a Babalão from Brazil, and he talked about Abimbola, which is like the cat that everyone goes to and talks to in regard to the history of the Yoruba culture and all this. And on my shelf is the book that Bobby told me to get, to learn about in Santeria. And it's literally right up there. And I open it up and there's a forward by Quien, Abimbola.
There you
But,
go.
you don't think about how things overlap, but it's just so small how tightly we're connected,
The
as Homo sapiens in the world.
Well, the universe works its magic on purpose, and nothing is of coincidence, as all of you have experienced in your lifetime, and so therefore it's meant to be. And for me, when this album came out, and we have to talk about the title. Hold that thought for a second, Bobby, because some folks here have some comments. Laura from Florida says this recording has a lot of energy, and you can feel the electricity of the live production. Bravo. Francois, once again, he says Candela upon listening to the music. Our dear friend Mary Kent, who's in Florida, photographer and author. Beautiful to be accompanied by the lovely Antoinette and Jen here. Love the female love. Amen to that. Dave Cantrell also says, excellent show, Jose. Dave Cantrell, thank you for that comment. Tell us why the title Vox Humana, Moby.
Well, because on our previous big band albums, and I must say I'm very proud of this orchestra. All of our albums have been Grammy nominated. Hopefully, I've submitted this recording in several categories, in about 8 different categories. Hopefully, we'll get nominated again, and hopefully, we'll win the damn thing eventually. Everybody asks me when they're going to let you win one of those things, But in any case, on our previous albums, I've always featured one song or 2 songs with a vocalist. But it was always in the back of my mind. I want to do an album all with vocalists. But as again, I said, I had to get the right ones. And I always wanted 3. Why 3? 3 is the number of Elegua, Elegbara, Elegiba, the guardian of the crossroads, the avatar of Ache, the positive energy force that permeates the multiverse. And that I wanted that energy on there, and I wanted them to be all women. And I had a little blowback, for some of the members of the band. Man, 3 women, man, oh, forget it. Jennifer talked about that fallacy about women catfighting and this, that, and the other. So, and I said, don't worry. These women that I've picked are consummate professionals, and I know they're going to get along well because each one of them respects each other and their art, and they respect me, which is the most important thing. So when they came together, like Jennifer said, it was like family, I mean, it was no big thing. I mean, and their talent in terms of being able to be flexible, adaptable, and to learn quickly is exactly the types of musicians that I call upon. They have to be technically proficient, but they also have to be good human beings too.
Something you just said, and Jennifer, you sort of like stated it when you talk about the book and whatnot, and Antoinette has been speaking about this proudly in her mission as to our roles. I think part of the imperative of a project like this for the listener and other musicians, and I'm going on I don't want to, it's not a soapbox what I'm going to say now, but I just want to take a moment to use this platform. I think we need to, at this moment in time, unlearn what we've learned and learn what we really need to learn that's important for us to know. And by that, what I'm saying, you make reference, and Jennifer made it before, this narrative that has been bountied about of women in particular not being able to coalesce and work as a collective because say lo que siete otro, right? That's a narrative that's imposed by people who want that narrative to be the narrative to therefore cause friction and not cause unity and not give agency to people who've been marginalized in a field that's dominated by men, right? And so
Preach, 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 preach.
This kind of project opens the door to say, wait a minute, we've learned things that continue to perpetuate hate, continue to perpetuate systemic racism, continue to perpetuate misogyny, continue to perpetuate, sexism, continue to perpetuate homophobia, xenophobia, class disparity. We continue to learn these things because there is a reason why it's structured that way, so those in power can maintain those who are not marginalized, right? And that's what we've learned, and we accept it as being the norm, when in fact it should be not the norm. It should be the opposite. We should be working towards equity. We should be working towards the embracement of diversity. We should be working and have as our goal inclusiveness. We should be working for justice in a just society worldwide. It should not be that we're outliers or rebels or activists or seen as being, these people who want to upset the cart. No, we want to do this because the love we have for humanity. And so I think this project, if I can say this to all of you and those who are watching, to me, what I take away is that you have put forth through this music and through this collective of energy, talent, creativity, an idea for all of us to say, let us unlearn what we have learned. And let's be open to learn what we really need to learn, that we need to know moving forward. And in particular, using music as the vehicle and the platform, and these gifted voices, strong voices that are not just strong as a voice, with agency to be able to articulate that message. I hope I'm not too far off.
No,
what
no,
you're
man.
proposing, but
100%, man. You preaching. You preaching.
Yeah, all I can say is colonialism is a bitch. We've all suffered from it, as you just beautifully stated. And if you look at the album cover, it says it all, because I'm screaming into that gigantic microphone, yelling out to please recognize us first and foremost as Latinos, Latinas in this country, and all we've contributed, and also listen to our voices, okay? Be ye men, women, etc., and listen to what we have to say, because it's of importance. And a lot of people are not listening, and that's why I'm screaming into that microphone while I'm floating in outer space. And this band and everything that I have always done in my career, I'm going to say it publicly. I've alluded to it, but I've never really said it publicly. Everything that I've done in my career, even as a side person, is a socio-political statement.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for
Everything.
sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
From the fact that I'm a Puerto Rican from the South Bronx, playing jazz drums, with some of the best artists in the world, and I'm not supposed to be doing that. So to the fact that I'm a composer, arranger, band leader, all of these things, and I'm an educator, this band and all the other groups that I lead are socio-political statements in terms of bringing people together, acknowledging the talents that we have, particularly as Afro-Latinos, Latinos in general, and that those voices need to be heard, and they need to be, first of all, not only heard, but respected.
Oh, for sure.
And I hope that manifests itself in some way, in a big way, in the next election, because we're at a crossroads right now.
I'm with you on that. And I think collectively your portfolio, and I've known you for 48 years, has been a social political statement. Just us four being, B-E-I-N-G is a political statement, a social political statement in itself. And just the narratives, the stories that all three of you have shared with us, which is just a nanosecond of thousands of hours of lives that you have all lived, are testimony, again, going back, Queen Antoinette, to our ancestors and the role that they played to lay the groundwork. Bobby, going back to your father and your ancestors and the role that they play and to lay the groundwork. Queen Jennifer Jade, the role that your parents and your ancestors played in laying the groundwork. All of this is basically the being of us being here is a political statement. What we do is what elevates it to a call for action, right? And so my belief is hearing your voices, hearing Queen Antoinette, hearing Jennifer, and you using this vehicle, this platform of music is the call for action. That's why I posit that I believe that this work in particular is one that says to me as a listener, what Bobby and company are asking me to do is to open my mind to unlearn. I will repeat, open my mind to unlearn what I have learned and learn the things that I need to learn that I really need to know. And that's what Vox Humana in my mind says, because if I were to see this performance live, you're taking me through a journey. And this, by the way, Bobby, I don't know. I haven't seen the performance live, so I don't know if it takes it to the next level where there's multimedia and I'm seeing pictures of you as a kid, where I'm seeing, the hydrant in the Bronx, and I'm
Right,
seeing
right.
all these things in Guanica and all that kind of stuff. But I listen to the music and I see a picture. I see a
Thank
narrative
you.
that is very much visual in my mind, listening to the music. I'm listening to the music with my headphones right here and when I do at night, and I'm visualizing the stories that you're sharing with us. The voices that I hear are giving me a vision of our stories, our lives, our people in a very magnificent way, which I think says a lot for what you do. And I think, Queen Antoinette, Sister Jennifer, I'm in love with you too, as I am with Bobby, and I have been for 48 years. So welcome to my new love circle.
Yeah.
Sharing and just being very
I'm glad
transparent.
Diving
you.
in, happy to dive in, happy to dive in. And that's a quote I think you to you to unlearn some things, etc., is should be one of the quotes about this project at the forefront, so that it might put masking tape over the mouth of negativity, that it will celebrate the effort, the collaborative. They stopped calling pianists that play for singers accompanists, and now they call everybody as a collaborator. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of what this is just a collaboration of 24 people with Bobby at the helm to come across. When I describe the project, people that listen to it are like, it's a powerful project. And that's what we want, is positive words
She kind of froze there for a second.
Yes, she froze.
The whole thing about
inside
this is,
of
yeah, there you go. You're kind of breaking up, Antoinette. But just to reiterate, this is not a thing of arrogance or being prideful or anything, because pride comes before the fall, as everyone knows. This is about me saying to everyone, listen, embrace this. We have many more things in common than differences. And you're all like, my son one day, Roberto Jose asked me, hey, Pop, my mom is Ecuadorian, you're Puerto Rican, my girlfriend's Venezuelan, and if we have a child together, how do I describe him or her? I said, well, you could say Pan Latino, son, if you want, a Pan Latina. But the better way to do it is just, listen, man, he's from the multiverse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I
that's
love
what
it.
it's all about. And the multiverse represents the ultimate power, which is love.
And I'm with you on that, and I appreciate you three and Janice earlier. But I think if I can sort of capture what I've taken away today, the multiverse, in the sense of, you mentioned we're at a crossroads, and I've stated this. Bobby, you've heard me say this. Jennifer, I'm just meeting you. Queen Antoinette, I'm just meeting you. I've shared with my audience countless times where I have a very profound belief that artists are living angels, because I believe that when the Supreme Being decided that human beings would inhabit this earth, they decided that they would gift us with very special human beings who, through their art and passion of creativity and the love for humanity, would be able to share their love through their art, regardless if they were singers, if they were poets, if they were writers, if they were sculptors, if they were dancers, if they were whatever art form that they had. And that it's through that art that really we, other human beings, then get to understand the universe of love, right? Because all of you, regardless how much success you've had, you're not driven by, I'm going to sell 1 million albums and make $1 million. You're driven by, my role on earth is to share my talent, skill, creativity to bring peace, love, and happiness to others, and joy and harmony to their lives. That's what I believe you as artists do. And listening to this project in particular, another takeaway that I want to share with you three that I hope resonates with you is that at this moment where we're in a crossroads, not just here in this country of the United States, which I call, by the way, the divided states of America, because it's not the United States of America, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
has not been since the Civil War, even though history will tell you, oh, yes, but it has not been because there have been forces who have been fighting for one form of government and one form of power, and there have been forces who have been fighting for another more representative form of government and another type of equal power. So, therefore, we're divided. And ergo, what happened yesterday as far as, extending the debt ceiling and all those kinds of things, but that's another argument. But having said that, we are at a very important crossroads because the future of our descendants depends on the now. And the indigenous people, Bobby, I know you know about this. The indigenous people have always had this ethos of whatever decision they make today is taken into account 7 generations down the road. So they never say, "Oh, we're doing this because of us." They're doing this because of 7 generations. So they want to be clear that they're doing it with purpose that will benefit 7 generations down the road, right? And so Vox Humana, listening to the whole album, and again, imagining in my mind visually what I'm hearing, is opening us to understand that we are at a crossroads and that if we're going to get inspired, music is going to be one way for us to get inspired. So you three angels are inspiring us. At least you've inspired me, and I love this album, and I think others will listen to it, will understand the importance of this album at this moment in time. Queen Antoinette, you mentioned earlier, it's not about, you know, it's number one on the chart. It's not about it's on the Billboard chart with a bullet. It's not about that. It's about it's quality music that will make us reflect and embrace each other's love as human beings. And I love the fact that you purposely landed on multiverse, Bobby. That the fact that you land on multiverse is, profound, right? Because what you're
Thank you.
saying is
Well,
not
I have
just
to thank two people: Neil deGrasse Tyson, who happens to be Puerto Rican as well, the head of the Hayden Planetarium. His mother is Puerto Rican. His father's African American. The great Neil deGrasse Tyson, who hit me to that concept uh, of the multiverse, and my lady, the one and only, the great Elena Martinez. She goes to me one day, "Hey, you ever heard of Octavio Paz, the Mexican writer?" I go, "No." He he goes, he talks about what you do with this big band. I go, "What are you talking about?" "The multiverse. Let me show you something he wrote." And I read this beautiful passage from one of his writings about how Latin America represents a multiverse. It's like a gigantic salad bowl with all of the colors in there and all of the flavors in, and you can see each one distinctly. But when you taste it, all of those other ingredients make the one whole taste so, so good. And that was, we used to be called the Bobby Sanabria Big Band, but I said I have to change the name of the band because this is what exactly what we represent sociopolitically and culturally,
Mhm.
as well as musically. No boundaries. Wayne Shorter used to talk about no boundaries, no net, no exactly like that. And you got to come see us live because sometimes we do stuff on stage that's completely impromptu. My ethos is, and they know everything is subject to change. So,
Be ready. Be
and,
ready.
and,
Be
and we
ready.
actually did that last night. Uh, so it was just fantastic. I want to thank the people of New Canaan, Connecticut, and Grace Farms. It was a sold out event. Man, we love you madly. They loved us madly. We got house, as we say in the biz. And Francois, if you're still there listening, you got to bring us to Europe.
There you go. There you
We've been
go.
to Europe before, believe it or not. We played at the Verona Jazz Festival, and this is a working band. This is not a thing that it just gets together every once in a while, like most big bands do. This band has been around for 25 years. This is the 25th anniversary of this band.
Congratulations.
And we have several events coming up. We could talk about them, but you just go to my website, bobbysanabria.com, and you'll find out about them. But I want everybody to really check this album out. It's a double CD set, and you'll
Mhm.
feel like you're in the concert there at Dizzy's.
No, and
Like
and
you hear these incredible talents.
and,
It's
and
as
I
well as
and,
all of the players.
and I love and I was so thankful because when you and I first spoke about the album, I had asked you. I said, "Is this going to be physical?" And you said, "I'm pushing it so it comes out as a disc." So I'm very happy that you finally were able to make that happen. It's a double album with liner notes and all the credit is given, so it's not just a digital. David Cantrell, who's watching like me, is somebody, as you can tell from my my library. We like the physical. We like to read the liner notes. We like the photos. We like the credits. We like everything that documents the work. There is a comment here for you, and it's from Brazil, un país tropical. And I'll let you read it. There you go. You see that one? Can you see it? Ronaldo Isaac.
Mhm.
Un saludo desde Brasil a todos. Bobby y mía referencia. Aprendo mucho con él. Un monstruo de música.
Obrigado. That's all I can say. Y muito axé. Thank you so much. Gracias, Ronaldo.
Gracias, Ronaldo.
Ô, Ronaldo, você tá onde no Brasil? Seu mestre mora aonde? Fala pra gente que você toca, que instrumento.
Yes.
A Dominican, Puerto Rican, from the Bronx, from the hood, speaking fluent Portuguese.
I love it. 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 Thank you.
I was
Jennifer.
doing a project in Brazil called Bronx Zillion, and I hired all Brazilians. And I'm from the Bronx. They're like, "Where you from?" They're like, "You Brazilian?" I was like, "Nah, I'm Bronx Zillion." What?
I love it. I love it. A couple of other things here. Francois responded to you. He said he would love it, Bobby. So there you go. Francois, work on
Oh,
it.
François, dites-moi, tu habites où? Et c'est France ou quoi? Parce que j'habite à Paris aussi depuis 2010. Voilà, avec les gens, c'est la famille, quoi.
I love it. There we
If you
go.
bring us, Francois, if you bring us to Europe, we'll definitely do
Oh.
something for you in French.
There you go.
Maybe taking something by the great Edith Piaf.
There you go.
Big
There you
band.
go.
Ronaldo plays drums and percussion.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. He wanted you
a
to
brother,
know.
a brother of rhythm. Yes,
A brother
indeed.
rhythm. You've got from Boston. You got. Let me see. He says something else. Here's Francois, southwest of France.
Oh, and Dax.
Dax.
Wait.
Okay.
Yes,
Good.
we
All right.
we have to do something, Francois. So you can get in touch with me through Jose, or just send me a private message through Facebook. I'm on Facebook too.
We'll make it
But
happen.
through Jose, you can get in touch with me and as Joan Rivers would say, another great New Yorker, let's talk.
So, before we wrap up, we're going to segue from what we've been listening, Bobby, and wind up with your version of America from your album West Side Story Reimagined.
Oh,
And
talking about that, Jose,
Yeah.
you talked about the visuals, etc.
Uh.
We performed that for over 10,000 people at Lincoln Center when it first came out outdoors, and we had over 800 pictures projected behind us in sync with the music from the great photography collective of Puerto Ricanos from New York, Seis del Sur.
Mhm.
David Gonzalez from the New York Times, Ricky Flores from Newsday, Joe Conzo Jr., and of several others. So we've done that type of thing before. It's big to do it, but I'd like to do more of that, because if the rock and pop performers can do it, we certainly can, and it adds another aspect.
Totally.
Performance.
And in my mind, again, music. So reading, for instance, one of the reasons I love to read, and I've always loved to read, is because in reading, I'm transported to a place that I am not at. Right. So the writer, if the person is a good writer, he or she, through their words, my imagination will see what they are writing visually. And I remember as a youngster, when I came to the United States for the first time at the age of 20, one of the things that I wanted to see, or many of the things I wanted to see, were the places that I had read about. So I wanted to go to 125th Street. I wanted to go to El Barrio. I wanted to go to Chinatown. I wanted to go to the Village. I wanted to go all these places because I read about them, right? When I went to Chicago, I wanted to go to Chess Records at 2120, Michigan Avenue. Because if you read them, you can imagine them, but you said, okay, now that I'm here, let me see them. Let me really see what it looks like. And so when I hear your music, and again, like I say, this is where I lay down. I have my headphones on, Divina's sleeping while I'm listening to it. I close my eyes, but I am imagining what I'm hearing visually. And when I heard Vox Humana, because of all of what you have in this recording and the voices that you have, I visually was seeing these scenes as the songs were being shared. And you're right. I think that if, again, it's budget always for all of us, at any moment you had the opportunity to do a multimedia piece that goes along with the music. Miguel was able to do that at Sanón when he did his Identities, right? He was able to do that with that album. But if you're able to do it with this album in particular, I think it would just add to the, and it brings other, you mentioned some great photographers, it brings some other artists into the mix as to how they would illustrate what it is that you're putting to music. So
Maybe we could do it at my alma mater, the Berkeley
College of Music. There you go.
That'd
There
be
you
a
go.
beautiful project to do it. We did it twice. We did it at we did it we did it at the Kennedy Center as well with West Side Story Reimagined, besides doing Lincoln Center. So it can be done with this project especially. And the beauty of what you just said, the 800 photos, they were all spanning a 40-year historical period of the South Bronx
Gotcha.
and Manhattan, El Barrio, with people from the Puerto Rican community. So
Gotcha.
it was amazing because some people were screaming in the audience while the music was going on, and the photos yelling out, "Ese soy yo." They didn't know that they had a picture had been taken of them like 15 years ago, and
There
they
you
go, it was amazing to hear that in real time, that energy coming back to us as the orchestra. So yes, let's do it.
Let's see how we make that happen.
If you think it and put
It
it
might
out,
happen. Put it on the universe. Put it on the multi-universe.
Manifest, manifest, manifest.
There we go. There you go.
Yeah.
So before we conclude, Sister Jennifer Queen, we've got some more from Ronaldo. This is what he's saying here.
He says, "Forgive me, I'm a dinosaur in this app, and I want to talk with y'all." Tudo bem, tá tudo certo. A gente sente energia bacana entre nós. É família. Você entende tudo.
And then he says,
Entendo. He doesn't know how to. And he's trying to curse. That's hilarious.
He adores
Sim,
all the,
somos latinos. Todo mundo. Mesmo sentido, bate coração.
well, some people, the journalism in Latin America, they have to realize Brazil is part of Latin America.
"Oh yeah, that's the other piece. That's the
Yes.
other piece."
Most
Again,
definitely.
it goes to that narrative that we speak of, right? You know the African proverb that says, "Until the lion tell the story of the hunt, the hunter will always be glorified." We need to be the lions, loudly telling our story to flip that narrative of what the hunt really is, so that we can do that. So I'm going to ask Ronaldo, this is one more, and then we're going to sequence out. He says, ooh, that's heavy. That's
Talk about
heavy. I don't understand Portuguese, but I can see that there's some heaviness there having to do with the indigenous people of Brazil.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
And
never
that's
get talked about. Yeah.
that's another subject matter for us to get
Yes.
to, because we speak again. I mentioned, Native Americans and the indigenous people as far as their world, or as far as their spiritual and intellectual thinking about their role in the world and moving forward. We barely touch on the whole legacy of abuse, oppression, genocide of the indigenous people in the Western Hemisphere. Because again, it fits into that narrative, right? It fits into the narrative, the Eurocentric narrative of they were savages, so therefore it was justified compared to they were human beings who were the people here, and we displaced them through force, and we continue to do so through legal means that are illegal, and that's another conversation for another
And
moment.
they don't want those stories to be told because
Not at all.
the truth will set you free.
Amen.
But first, it will piss you off.
For sure.
So, and
sure.
that's why, unfortunately, Rick DeSantis, what he's doing in Florida is an abomination. I mean, how could you ban a book on Roberto Clemente? I don't, that's just one example.
We continue. That will be chapter 2 of our conversations.
Well,
I'm gonna,
the other thing is we all have to listen. We all have to listen as well to our stories and to each other.
Amen.
That we have lost a listening and patience for each other is
Amen.
part of the problem. So
You got
let's
it.
correct our problem.
That's true. That's true. And part of it is that we have to be much more purposeful in not being laid astray, in the old Malcolm X movie by Spike Lee and with our dear friend Denzel. We've been bamboozled. We have to be purposeful and not allow ourselves to be bamboozled with the frivolous things that we believe are important when in fact they have no importance every day into our well-being as human beings and people and African descendants. My dear friends, I'm going to close with you all taking a minute. Queen Antoinette, you've got the microphone. Then we're going to slide to Queen Jennifer Jade, and then we wind up with my brother Bobby Sanabria.
Give more love. Please, everyone, under the sound of our voices in this project, that we all must be family as best we can be. We may not always agree, but we don't have to be so disagreeable when we do disagree. And Vox Humana is the project. Put it out there, tell the world about it. There are some new artists that have had lots of money infused into their artistry and into their projects. Well, that's beautiful. But we need the support from the public. So pass it along. Tell everybody about this great, great project with these amazing artists and our maestro, Bobby Sanabria.
Thank you, the Queen Antoinette and Queen Jennifer Jade Ledesma.
Hey, everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for listening today. Just some updates because Vox Humana members are everywhere all the time doing amazing things with healing. If you're bored and like Monday Night Football, tune into the Giants game. I'll be singing the national anthem in honor of Latin Heritage Month and breast cancer awareness. So shout out to the multiverse. And also the premiere of the Strayhorn Nutcracker, Billy Strayhorn Duke Ellington Nutcracker at the City Center the last 2 weeks of November. So come through and hear your girl sang Multiverse in the House.
Wow, congratulations. Good
Merci
going.
beaucoup.
Good going. Roberto,
Yeah.
Bobby Sanabria. Let's touch on the Salsa project because it would be remiss on your part and my part if we did not uplift that for the people who are listening, and then we'll close. Go ahead, Bobby.
Well, in 2 years, the Smithsonian is being put together now. In 2 years, there'll be a, a, a project at the Smithsonian documenting the history of what we call salsa today. So I'm involved as one of the advisors, researchers, etc., along with the lovely Elena Martinez and a team of other great people that we all know, Rene Lopez, etc., etc. So that's something to look forward to after the election. And I honored my father talking about him, but I want to honor my mother, Juanita Sanabria, from Yabucoa, Puerto Rico, from the barrio of Jacanas in Yabucoa, Puerto Rico. Because of her, she convinced my father to sign the papers to allow me to, as a minor, go to the Berklee College of Music and fulfill my dreams and destiny. So, Mommy, thank you so much for being a strong Puerto Rican woman. I know you're alongside Papi in heaven. I love you madly, as both of you, as Duke Ellington would so succinctly say. I hope I've made you all proud.
May they rest in peace, love, and power. And speaking about the Salsa Project, it'll be an exhibit. There are a number of folks throughout the country who have been tapped to lean in and play a role in some fashion or another. I'm another one that will be joining Bobby and others on this exhibit that will take place in a couple of years. I want to thank my dear friend Eduardo Diaz, who was the person who opened the door and invited me to participate. And I think it'll be another way of us uplifting our story, correcting misconceptions, giving tribute to those who deserve and have not been and are under appreciated, and those who deserve and have always been in the forefront of some great things that we have been doing. So it's important that we participate in this kind of thing. Again, as I say, for us to be the voices and be the people sharing our stories. And so, Bobby,
one last thing I wanted to say.
Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. God bless John Fausti, who just recently passed away. One of the greatest engineers in the history of Latin music. He, along with Irv Greenbaum and several others from the Jewish community, these great Jewish engineers who really redefined the way Latin percussion is supposed to be recorded on what we call salsa recordings of today. And everyone, please, if you enjoyed what we've been talking about, you can get Vox Humana on all platforms. We will see you in the multiverse. Mucho H. Much positive energy to everyone.
Bobby, I love you.
Gracias.
Queen Jennifer, I love you. And Queen Antoinette, I love you as well. Our living angels, blessings, 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 de mucho H. And we will do this again. Let's not make this the only time that we have an opportunity to have a conversation. All right, my friends?
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Merci.
And
Au
Queen
revoir.
Janice too, yeah.
Be well. Thank you so much.
Au
Appreciate
revoir.
it. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao. All right, my dear friends. So with that, the show will be over in about 5. I got one more song that I'm going to share with you that's not from Vox Humana or Bobby Sanabria, but I just wanted to share it because today, October 1st, would have been the anniversary of the passing of one of my favorite artists, somebody who I owe a lot to, and that is the one and only Jerry Gonzalez, who died on this day, 2018, at the age of 69 in Madrid, a victim of a horrendous fire that took place in his apartment. May he rest in peace, love, and power. I owe him and his brother Andy so much because when I started off on radio 48 years ago, Bobby mentioned Renee Lopez. Renee Lopez made it possible for me to connect with both Andy and Jerry to go to their home in Gildersleeve Avenue in the Bronx, and they gave me tutelage. I spent the whole afternoon going into the evening, going into the night, just listening to them, sharing knowledge, experiences, anecdotes, sharing some music from cassettes, playing live jam sessions that started taking place from the afternoon going into the night, and they became my road towards a master's, if you will, of understanding this great music of ours. And so I hold them dearly. I'm in gratitude to both Andy and Jerry. So before we conclude, I'm going to share a song by by Andy, performed live at the Heineken Jazz Festival going back to 2008. A song that was originally recorded by the great Israel Cachao Lopez, titled Pa Gozar Un Solo Golpe Nama, featuring the great Pedrito Martinez and Ann Gonzalez on bass in the group Rumba Jazz. So that's going to be the last song that you're going to hear, but I dedicate that to the one and only Jerry Gonzalez. And my guest next weekend, just so you know, el próximo fin de semana, me invitados a Israel Tannenbaum and the Tannenbaum Jazz Ensemble. He has a new album out, which is fantastic. If you like the music that you heard today, you're going to love the music as well from Israel. It's titled Impressions. He's a great pianist. We've had a friendship for many years, and he'll be joining me next Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. Israel Tannenbaum, Tannenbaum Jazz Ensemble Impressions. Mi invitado el próximo domingo será Israel Tannenbaum, reconocido pianista, quien estará con nosotros de 4 a 6 el domingo día 8 de octubre. That'll be on the 8th of October. And then Sammy Figueroa, who's well known to many of you, will be joining me as well. He will be my guest on the 15th of October. He has a new album out, which is beautiful. It's titled, it's dedicated to his father. May he rest in peace and power. It's titled Searching for a Memory. Charlie Figueroa was his father. Busco tu recuerdo, featuring the great Cuban pianist Gonzalo Rubalcaba and the great Cuban vocalist Aimee Nubiola and other guests, including Miguel Senon. And that will be on the 15th of October from 4 to 6 p.m. Sammy Figueroa will be my guest here on Con Salsa Live. So share that with your friends. I also want to tell you that in addition to all the great work Bobby does, he has a radio show. He's been doing it now maybe 3 years, I want to say, on WBGO, The Latin Cruise, on Saturdays from 4 to 6. So tune into that. You can tune in every Saturday. It's one of my favorite shows, Bobby Sanabria, The Latin Cruise. And before I conclude, I also want to share just a couple of things. This is more in news, but let me thank a couple of people here. Carmen, muchas gracias. I'll say thanks a lot for another wonderful show. Congratulations to all the guests. Thank you so much. And then here, Francois says he loved the program. Thank you. He's going to go and pick up the album. My dear friend Mary Kent, an inspiration, says to me, fantastic show, Jose. Thanks as always for showcasing Latin music, flourish artists, and music. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I want to take a moment to thank a few people. And the reason I do this is because this past Thursday, here in Boston, Ethos, which is a social service agency here in the city, celebrating their 50 years, had their gala anniversary, and one of the 3 people that they honored was yours truly. I want to thank them for thinking me worthy of this honor, along with my dear friend Sheldon Lloyd and the Reverend. We were honored by this august group of caregivers, and I want to thank them for this opportunity to be in the circle of these great people where the heart is. And they presented me with the Ageless Advocacy Award, of which I took graciously on behalf of my family, my ancestors, and dedicated to my beautiful wife, Divina, and our son, Jose Fabio. And I also want to thank the Boston Globe, in particular, my dear friend James Sullivan, who was kind enough to write an article that appeared in today's Globe in the art section titled On Air and Off. Jose Maso has been heard. It's also in the digital version, but thank you, James. Again, another person who thought of me in a way that deserves some type of acknowledgement and recognition for my work. So thank you, James, for doing that. And I love the picture that they took of me in front of the Embrace sculpture here in downtown Boston. So to Ethos, I thank you. And to James Sullivan, the Boston Globe, I thank you as well for this honor, and for all of you for the role that you've played. Whatever success I've had has not been because of me. It's been because of each and every one of you supporting me throughout my life, and in particular my family, who's made so many sacrifices for me to be able to do what I've done for the community. But more so, I appreciate the fact that you are part of my journey, and that I love you so much because you give me so much love. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And for the Boston area, I want to tell you that the Regatta Bar is open again. We had a chance to see Yosmani Terry perform with his quartet this past Friday, Divina and I, and there are a number of performances that will be taking place starting this month of October, going right through November, and I'm looking forward to announcing them. I will be at one of them on November 16th, I think it is. I will be emceeing Havana Nights, and I'll give you more information as that date comes about. But in the meantime, let's hear one more song as we conclude this weekend's edition of Con Salsa Live on Facebook and YouTube. Vamos a concluir la programación para hoy. Gracias a cada uno de ustedes por su atención. Vamos a escuchar una canción más. Esta ocasión se trata del gran Andy González, bajista, con Pedrito Martínez en las vocales. La canción lleva el título Pa' gozar un solo golpe nada más, y viene del disco grabado en vivo en Heineken Jazz Festival. So let's enjoy this one last song, and then we will say adios.
La rumba no es el canción que tiene claras sus notas. La rumba no es el danzón que tiene claras sus notas. La rumba uno con la boca le busca el tono menor. La rumba uno con la boca le busca el tono mejor. Puede hacer tu inspiración buscando tonos mejores. Puede hacer tu inspiración buscando tonos mejores. Buscando una ilustración Ya son muchos los rumberos que levantan sus pamplinas. Ya son muchos los rumberos que levantan sus pamplinas. Creen que la rumba es rutina y quieren ganar honores. Los rumberos se ponen orgullosos. Cuando llego a la rumba guarachar, los rumberos se ponen orgullosos. Cuando yo llego a la rumba guarachar, oye bien, oye bien, oye bien, oye bien, dímelo bueno. Un solo golpe nada más, 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 un solo golpe nada más.
Bueno, mi gente, con el sonido de Rubén Blades. Bendición, concluimos la programación para esta tarde. El nombre mío es José Mazón. Hasta el próximo fin de semana, si Dios permite. Estaremos con ustedes domingo de 4 a 6, Israel Tannenbaum, nuestro invitado, el sábado por la noche con salsa por la radio WBOR 90.9 FM Stereo Polvo. Hasta entonces, Dios os bendiga a cada uno de ustedes. Cuídense. Los quiero mucho. Until next weekend, when we're on Saturday night, WBOR 90.9 FM, National Public Radio in Boston, from 10 p.m. until 3 o'clock in the morning, featuring the very best in Afro-Latin music. And Sunday next week from 4 to 6, once again, another edition of Con Salsa Live on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, I love you, God bless you, and thank you for being part of the Con Salsa family.